So this is an honest conversation with a paramedic. I was on Google and I typed in how do paramedics. Google gave me 10 questions that people obviously ask very often. So I'm going to be giving you an honest, unscripted answer to these questions. First one is, what makes someone a good paramedic? I think, I don't know. I think if I had to break down all those things, I'd say someone who is able to work well under pressure. When there's stress involved, I think you need to be able to think calmly and clearly. I think this, though, does come with experience. When you first start, taking your blood pressure can be pretty stressful. You're taking your first blood pressure, pretty stressful. But then when it comes to dealing with, people who are busy dying and bleeding out, it's also very stressful, and that all comes with experience. But I even think that some of the best paramedics and doctors are also going to feel pressure when they're dealing with things, especially when things don't go very well. What makes someone a good paramedic? I think someone who stays humble, someone who keeps learning, and someone who keeps on reflecting on their practice. We can't expect to get better if we're not actually trying to get better. And if we rely on what we've just learned in, studies or paramedic school, we're not going to continue to develop. So I would say what makes someone a good paramedic is someone who continues to learn and someone who continues to treat people like people and not just treat people like mannequins, would be my answer. Second question, how do you tell if you would be a good paramedic? Well, I'll tell you a story after this, but I would say that you should go and work with a paramedic. Go and do a volunteer shift. Go do a bunch of shifts, actually. Do a night shift. Do a day shift. See how you feel about working with people, working under stress, working with blood, working with pregnancies and all sorts of other things that go along with it. Go and actually volunteer. That's going to give you a really good idea. I know people who studied to be a paramedic without ever even volunteering on a single shift. I volunteered on a shift for, I think it was like grade 10 or 11, we had to do like a job shadow. And so I volunteered on 2 or 3 shifts and I saw like a dead person, I saw a baby being delivered, I saw like someone bleeding out, I saw a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I would recommend you do that. As a paramedic myself, I've had students come along with me, come and do their job shadowing with me, and the one came with me, and at the end of the shift, I always give them my, honest opinion, and I said to her, I don't think you should be a paramedic. And today she's a dentist. So I'm really glad I encouraged her not to pursue becoming a paramedic because it wouldn't have been the right thing for her. What hard skills do you need to be a paramedic? I think you need to be pretty good with, I think in terms of like understanding and becoming a paramedic, I think you need to have a good understanding of like anatomy, physiology, science, and maths. Those would be like hard skills. You also need to be really good with your hands. So if you're good at problem solving, if you enjoy dealing with people, if you enjoy helping people, if you enjoy biology and anatomy and physiology and all that sort of stuff, then those would probably be the hard skills you need, because those are the skills that are going to be relied upon for you to become a paramedic. How do paramedics gain confidence is the next question. How do paramedics gain confidence? I think with experience. No one qualifies as a paramedic and suddenly has confidence. I think it takes working with a great mentor. I had a mentor who I worked with for second and third year and fourth year, or mainly second and third year, long story. And I think he was able to grow me and challenge me and give me that sort of confidence that I needed. And then also just starting out being humble and not thinking that you're the best thing on the block, but actually just staying grounded, continue to learn and continue to grow. Because when you stop learning, then you're not going to be doing the best, because medicine is always changing. And so, yeah, confidence comes with time and experience. I don't think anything else is really going to give you confidence except for practice. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. What soft skills do paramedics need? I'm not exactly sure what they mean by soft and hard skills. Soft skills, I guess, hard skills would be like physical ability, and so your hands. And soft skills, I would say you need to be able to have a quick mind and a quick thought and be able to think quick on the spot and be able to problem solve, I guess. What are the disadvantages of being a paramedic? Shift work. If you work 2 day, 2 night, 4 off, or 5 on or 5 off, you're working 12-hour shifts, you're working long nights, you don't get much sleep, you don't eat very well, you're probably going to gain weight and have an unhealthy diet, and you're going to spend half the year away from your family. So you're not there for Christmas, you're not there for birthdays, you're not there for Sunday lunches, you're not there for, New Year's or Easter weekend or whatever the case is. You can't really plan around that. So yes, you might have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and so you have the week off, which is great. The one perk about shift work. But if you talk to anyone who's done shift work for a long time, it's really tough. It's tough on your family, it's tough on you, because you're missing out on so many things. I've missed out on so many Christmases and birthdays and family gatherings and all that sort of thing, because either I'm waking up super early in the morning because I'm working 12 hours tomorrow, or, so it's hard because you don't have normal work time, normal work hours. So you end late, start early. And if your wife works full time as well, or your husband or whatever, your partner works full time as well, then you're not going to spend a whole lot of time with them. This is a problem with being in any sort of medicine or EMS or anything like that, is that you spend a lot of time at work and a little time at home. So that's probably the disadvantage. Another disadvantage of being a paramedic is obviously you deal with some really traumatic stuff. Obviously dealing with dead people is pretty hard. And that comes to the next question is being a paramedic hard? I think that a paramedic's lifespan is pretty limited. I think that, I know that in some countries there's a very short lifespan of a paramedic, so it can be 3 to 5 years, and then they're burnt out or they've got PTSD or whatever the case is. I know that some countries where it's done a bit better, maybe like Europe, whatever the case is, I'm not entirely sure. They have better working environments, they have better lifestyles for the paramedics, and so they are more likely to work longer. But long term, being a paramedic for a very long time is going to take a huge strain on you mentally, physically, emotionally. So yeah, I would say being a paramedic is hard. I don't think it's for everyone, but I don't think that any job is for everyone. I think you need to take into account what is your long-term plan when becoming a paramedic. Are you going to go into education? Do you want to go into where is this heading? Because generally speaking, you need to continue to grow and not just stay in one position. So are you going to go into management? Are you going to go into education? Are you going to go into development? Are you going to where is this job taking you? Because just becoming a paramedic and then staying a paramedic your whole life is limiting. The next question is, why do paramedics quit? I assume quit being a paramedic. I think it's quite traumatic. Dealing with death and dying and pain and sorrow and all that stuff is really hard. Having to tell a mom that their child is dead is traumatic for me. Having to resusc that child, or having to resusc a family member, or having to deal with blood and death and dying is mentally straining, mentally traumatic for me. And I'm sure it is for other people. And so oftentimes people just become pretty numb to the stuff and they kind of just switch off. I've heard many a paramedic and doctor say that they care more about animals than they do people, because we just kind of become numb to this, which is really bad for us. I've actually made a video about this if you want to check it out. So paramedics quit because it's not an easy job. Why do paramedics make so little? I don't know. I think we should be paid a little bit more. And that's a big reason why they're leaving South Africa. And it's also a big reason why they'll leave wherever they are to go work overseas or on ships or on rigs or wherever else, because we will be paid a whole lot more. So I think we're probably undervalued. I don't know why they pay us so little. Is being a paramedic traumatic? I would say so. I would say that being a paramedic is pretty traumatic. You deal with, like I previously said, I feel like a lot of these questions are aimed at that sort of thing. Yeah, it's hard. Paramedics quit. Why do we earn so little, and why do we have such a traumatic job? I don't know. I think most people don't deal with much death in their life. I think the average person hasn't really seen a dead person. That's just an assumption. And I think that being a paramedic is traumatic because you see death and dying. When I was going to get into being a paramedic, my mom said to me, "Are you really sure? Like, is this what you really want? Is there anything else you want to do?" She was trying to kind of persuade me not to, because she understands what impact that has on you as a person, on your mind and your emotions, because obviously dealing with this stuff is really tough. So yeah, I would say being a paramedic is traumatic.